This is the Bottom Bins Podcast.
Oh, yeah! Hello and welcome back to the Bottom Bins Podcast. The first week of Premier League football has been and gone, so time for us to get our teeth into it and analyse. So we're going to do something a wee bit different this time around, folks, for our Premier League coverage. What we're going to do every week is we're going to have a game that we're calling the featured game of the week. And really what we're going to do is we're going to focus in a wee bit more in depth on that featured game. So make sure in our promotion for the episodes, keep a lookout, and we will have on our promotion what the featured game will be that week. And we're going to try and do it across all the clubs to really give a bit more in-depth coverage on each club. So starting off the featured game this week then, we're doing Chelsea and Liverpool. Finished 1-1. Oren, it was a real, Liverpool in that first 30 minutes looked excellent, but for the rest of the game, you would say Chelsea did look quite comfortable in the end up.
Yeah, look, it wasn't the high scoring, free flowing football game that I would say a lot of us were expecting. In terms of Chelsea's starting lineup, I was expecting a much stronger team. But then you have to take into consideration like some injuries and stuff, the likes of Nkunku, which I think if it is a long term injury, it could really affect Chelsea's start to the season, because he looked fantastic in pre-season. But starting with the likes of Chukwuemeka and stuff surprised me. So maybe that's a sign of things to come under Pochettino. But a good result all in all. Like, look, if you're playing Liverpool at all in the Premier League, whether that's at home or away, you would before the game you would take a point, especially after Chelsea last season. So I think it's a good result actually for both teams. But to me, it just showed that Liverpool are still lacking in midfield. And we've seen this week has been an absolute hiatus for them, where they agreed a fee of 115 million for Moises Caicedo, who then absolutely rejected them and went to Chelsea. They also lost out on their biggest target of the summer, probably, in Romeo Lavia, who also went to Chelsea. So they've zero pull at the minute, which is fucking crazy. But look, they really need to strengthen defensively in the next few weeks before the transfer window ends, or it could be a long season for Liverpool. But all in all, it's going to be difficult to properly take any negatives from any game because, look, it's the first game of the season. So much more things can happen, but a 1-1 draw, I think, is a fair result for both teams.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, Liverpool's lack in midfield really was shown at certain points during that game. I mean, the Chelsea and Liverpool fixture is one that is synonymous with draws, really. That's the fifth successive draw in this fixture now. So it's not really a fixture known for its abundance of goals as such. They both ended up 1.28 XG apiece, which was, I'd say, probably fair. Salah, obviously, with his 199th goal involvement in the Premier League, and what an assist to Diaz. I mean, the weight of the pass, the trajectory of the pass, and the way it just sort of moved in for Diaz then to slide in and get his foot on the ball, I thought was probably the takeaway moment from the game. And I think that's the thing with Liverpool. Yeah, they might be lacking in midfield, but I mean, the firepower they have up top, that's what's going to keep them in and around the top four this season. That ability to score goals, and like they have it in abundance. We're looking at Enzo Fernandez as well, who I thought was excellent on the night. From his Premier League debut, he has created 22 big chances in the Premier League. That's the most of any player since his debut. And the shocking thing that I think we can take away from this game is obviously Poch had a back three with Levi Colwill starting right out on left centre back. But believe it or not, he actually had the most attacking sequence involvements in the game. He had 6 attacking involvements, whether that be shot, pass into the final third. So I think it just shows you how Poch is going to play this season. Very high energy, moving his fullbacks forward, but also getting the centre backs inverting and getting them involved in the attack. And really, I think my takeaway from the game is I would look at it more as a positive for Chelsea than a positive for Liverpool, especially after the season that Chelsea had last season. It was so poor. So to come out and really, like I said, look to control the game against Liverpool in the first game of the season, I think is a massive step forward. What about yourself then, Connor? Any thoughts on the game?
Yeah, it was a strange game. First 30 minutes, Liverpool looked unbelievable, dictating the game. The game kind of changed once that Salah goal was disallowed. It was just a tight offside call. Kind of woke Chelsea up. I thought from then on, I thought McAllister looked very good first half. I thought Salah was dangerous. Diaz looked really good, but just the intensity dropped. I seen like Trent said that after the game. He said the intensity just dropped, and Chelsea then dictated the game. Chilwell got a goal disallowed. They equalised. The new signing did well. The centre back, Diassi, good at header. And I thought, Jackson was impressive. Just can't finish, really, to be honest. He will improve, but he's very dangerous, and he really went at the Liverpool defence. Enzo Fernandez was unbelievable, as you said, Connor. Liverpool are definitely missing a number 6. Like, it's so obvious to see. Obviously, Caicedo and Lavia have chosen Chelsea for reasons, maybe money or London or whatever, but they definitely need a 6. I don't know where they're going to go from here. But Liverpool probably will be happy with a point. It's the first game. Stamford Bridge is always difficult to go to, even when they are playing poorly. So, yeah, for Chelsea, it is a lot more exciting. As you said, some of the players, like even I thought Gallagher played well. Caldwell was very good. He's a top defender, and you can see why they kept him. But all in all, a draw. As you said, the XG was similar. I thought it was fair enough. But we'll just have to see. It's the first game of the season. It's hard to know where both teams will go from here. But I think if Liverpool can get a 6 in, they definitely have the firepower up top. Because even the Bruno Nunez, who obviously nearly scored, and obviously if Yata, Diaz, Salah, some really exciting players. And as the season goes on, I'd expect Liverpool to improve.
Yeah, I mean, Oren, like Salah probably didn't have his best ever second half for Liverpool, and it ultimately led to that moment of frustration where you could see him when he substituted. He's ripping the hand wraps off, he's throwing them on the ground, doesn't acknowledge Klopp. It actually did sort of reminisce me the last season to the way like Ronaldo might have acted. And look, this is a guy who's Liverpool's highest paid player. He's undoubtedly Liverpool's best player. Like, is that the kind of thing that they need to be seeing this season? Like, do you really mind that little bit of attitude maybe that he showed? Is it just frustration carrying over from last season? Like, what was your like initial thoughts when you seen that happen with Salah?
I think like it's a good and a bad thing. It is a good and a bad thing. I think in terms of Salah in particular, I think it is, although yes, it's a similar event to Ronaldo last season. I think it was pretty clear Ronaldo made it clear through his agents and stuff he was exploring possibilities to leave United all summer. Didn't turn up for pre-season. He made it very clear he didn't want to play for Manchester United anymore. And then when nobody wanted him, Eric Ten Hag was like, well, you tried all year, or you tried all summer to get out. Like, you're not guaranteed a starting spot. But with Salah, yeah, he's been their best player since he signed, really. I think he wants Liverpool to win. Do you know what I mean? He does. There's no doubting Mohamed Salah's commitment to Liverpool, and I think if people, because I have seen quite a lot online, people calling them a rat, including Liverpool fans calling them a rat for disrespecting Klopp and stuff, and I just think that's a load of bullshit, to be 100% honest. I think Mohamed Salah is a winner, and I think even though, yes, he mightn't have his best game, if there's anybody in the Premier League, let alone just Liverpool, who I think could score if they have one chance, it's Mohamed Salah. So he obviously thinks they got as well. I seen an interview where he was asked about fantasy Premier League, and he was like, "Who are you going to captain?" He was like, "Me." He was like, "Who's going to score the most goals?" He was like, "Me." He said, "Who's going to get the most assists?" He said, "Me." Do you know what I mean? He backs himself, even if he's not going to play well. Like, you can almost guarantee Mohamed Salah is going to get a goal or an assist. So I would say it's just frustrating that he couldn't help the team anymore after that period of time. I don't think it'll disrupt the dressing room whatsoever.
Yeah, look, I agree with you, Warren. I think, some of the reaction and the backlash on social media to an incident like that, at the end of the day, he's a human being. He's just frustrated. He was frustrated that he was being taken off. And yeah, like you said, if a chance is going to drop to anybody in that Liverpool team, well, you probably want Mohamed Salah on the end of it. Connor, big shout in the game for a penalty with Nicholas Jackson. I actually thought Jackson played very, very well, occupied a lot of really, really good spaces for Chelsea. But, again, we have a weekend where referees really clamp down with the yellow cards, and I think we might see a few more red cards this season as well. But, looking at that, Jackson's hand's kind of up around here. Now, yes, they're saying that he wasn't in control of where his hand was, which is why the penalty wasn't awarded. But in your eyes, should Liverpool really have been awarded a penalty in that instance?
It's a difficult one because, like, in some games are given penalties for that, some games are not. Like, I think the Brighton and Luton game, there was a penalty given that was kind of similar. I think it's a difficult one, to be honest. If I was a Liverpool fan, would I wanted a penalty? 100%. It's one of them 50-50 ones. I think if he had given a penalty, they wouldn't have overturned it. But they haven't given it, and that's the way it goes. And I haven't really seen too much complaints about that one. There's various other incidents, but like on the yellow card thing, I actually think it's a good thing for football because I think it is going to clamp down time wasting, and this calling for yellow card stuff will be clamped down. Even in the United game, it rarely ever. Even Neto was booked there for time wasting with throw-ins and stuff. I actually like that because I think it will improve the game. It'll improve the speed of the game. The ball will be in play more. I think that's a really good thing. I've seen people complain about it because it's different, but I think after a few weeks, it'll be clamped down. People will stop doing that yellow card thing, diving, and I think it is necessary. I don't know what you guys think of that, but I think it is a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, the only thing I would say about it is I think maybe football's trying to discourage physical contact, which is a bit annoying, to be honest. I think yellow cards are being handed out sort of willy-nilly now for challenges that last season we probably would have said, yeah, definitely a foul, but like no need for a card there. And I think we're going to see more of that this season. The time wasting thing, I definitely agree with. Booking players for time wasting, yet move it on, get the game going. We want excitement, we want the ball to be in play. What about yourself, Warren? What's your take on the sort of new rules surrounding yellow cards this season?
Um, I pretty much agree with what both of you have said. I do think it takes an element of physicality out of the game. However, it does improve the speed of the game. I think we will see a lot more stoppage time. I think they might actually introduce more so like they had in the World Cup, where the ball has to be in play for the majority of the 90 minutes to stop time wasting and stuff. So I think it is good in that sense because when you look at players who do often get a lot of bookings, you're looking at like holding midfielders and stuff who I know are tempo setters during the game, but if they are winning a game, an incident like Pedro Neto's where he got the yellow card, if you're one yellow card away from a 1 game ban or a 2 game ban, whatever it is, you're not going to do the same time wasting tactics, which could be ultimately the difference in a goal in some games. So I think it will improve the actual match of the actual game of football in terms of free flowing football. However, for players, I think they're going to get a lot more frustrated whenever they are getting potentially silly yellow cards.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be one that I'm sure we will have analysed to the teeth this season. So we're going to move it on now to Turf Moor, the first game of the Premier League returning. We had Burnley versus Manchester City. City ending up 3-0 victors, really. It was comfortable from start to finish for City. But I will say I did think Burnley gave a good account of themselves in this game. On City's side of things, Rodri really pulling the strings in there in midfield. He was involved in the most attacking sequences with 10. Not often that you can say that about a central defensive midfielder, but just highlights how important of a cog he is. And of course, it only took Erling Haaland 3 minutes and 5 seconds to register his first goal of the Premier League season. Ended up with 2. And the maddest stat that I read this weekend is that Erling Haaland averages 22 touches per goal in the Premier League. That is absolutely insane. Just shows how much of a poacher he is in front of that goal. Oren, comfortable for City, really, wasn't it?
It was, and I was actually expecting a bit more from Burnley, to be 100% honest. And I don't know if that's just because, first game back in the Premier League, playing at home. I was kind of thinking it was going to be quite similar to when Brentford got promoted and they played Arsenal in the first game. Um, I was thinking they might pull off something and potentially get a point against the champions. Like, what a story that would be, especially for Company against his old side. But when I was looking at the Burnley team, like, they have no, in my opinion, they've no that one standout player. Do you know what I mean? They've no real flashy player in their squad that you could really pick out and be like, oh, he's the absolute key man. He could play in other teams higher up in the league and stuff. And I think they need to really dip into the market this year or in the next couple of weeks, and then further strengthen in winter, because it's been a common theme with the promoted sides this year. They don't seem to have, like, whenever we see Nottingham Forest last year, Fulham a couple of years ago when they signed fucking everybody as well. Like, these new promoted teams aren't spending the money they've been given. It's odd, and it's not as if they wouldn't have pull because you're playing in the Premier League. And I know they are signing some good players. Like, I think Sander Berge will be an absolutely fantastic signing for Burnley, and I think it's ridiculous that Sheffield let him go to a relegation rival. But yeah, look, Manchester City, treble winners. They should be winning that game. Erling Haaland is just ridiculous. His second goal was absolutely phenomenal. He didn't even look at the goal, and he just pinged it off the crossbar and in like he's just an animal. But yeah, the unsung hero, as always, is Rodri. Absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And I actually think, based off one game, so it's could be a stupid opinion, the loss of Gundogan could actually be a good thing for Man City, because more players will get into their squad and get minutes.
It's definitely, Gundogan is undoubtedly a massive loss for City, but yes, the rest of the side definitely have shown that they can step up in games. Although, City had a 2.21 XG to Burnley's 0.3. For as much as Burnley gave a good account of themselves, they didn't really challenge City's goal. But I actually thought the goalkeeper Trafford in goal for Burnley, I thought he actually had quite a decent game. Made a couple of really, really good saves. Again, 66% possession to Manchester City through the course of the game. So I think you're going to expect that, from the champions. And yeah, look, Connor, I mean, even, Nathan Ake really, really stepped up and had a massive performance in there for City. He started ahead of Gvardiol, their major money signing. Look, we know what Pep's like. He is a bit strange. No Grealish in the starting 11 as well. Are you just expecting Pep to sort of rotate week in, week out, and maybe we'll see minutes for more players this season?
Yeah, definitely. Even like De Bruyne got injured in the first 10 or 15 minutes, and it didn't seem to make a difference. Kovacic came on and I thought he was brilliant as well. As you said, Rodri was superb. They have Grealish on the bench. Obviously Alvarez started this game, set up Haaland for his goal. I just thought there's just a standard difference there, and it's clear to see. One side was promoted, one side is the treble winners, and City were just, third, fourth gear, pretty comfortable, just a step above. I thought, the first thing you'd said to your players is don't concede a goal inside the first 15 or 20 minutes against City. They conceded, they switched off from a free kick. Rodri, good header across to Haaland, who's not going to miss from there. And Haaland was a danger throughout the game. I thought actually he could have scored a lot more if they'd given him the ball. He was in a few times. He was frustrated, even like Pep and him going in at halftime. We're kind of having, Pep was kind of going at him, but I thought he looked frustrated because the way Burnley were setting up, they were playing very high up the pitch, and there was great chances in behind. Burnley did have that 15-minute spell where they were decent, but once City got that second goal, the game's over. And the 6 debutants did Burnley, so we'll have to give them a bit of leeway. I think that's the worst fixture they could have got. I seen Company said even before the game, he said this will be our worst performance of the season because so many debuts. Getting used to the Premier League, you're going up against City. But yeah, City have won. I've seen the stat against Burnley. They're 40 goals to 1 up in their previous 11 games. So City just beat them every season. And City they're the best team in the world. And I don't think there's any arguments in that. And I think even in second, third gear, they're going to beat sides like Burnley pretty easily.
Yeah, they're just a just a winning machine, really. Manchester City. Well, moving it on then, lads, we're going to go to St James's Park for Newcastle versus Aston Villa in what was billed as the best of the rest. Ended up 5-1 to Newcastle, fairly convincing sweep from the Geordies. Look, I mean, interesting stats, Sandro Tonali and Moussa Diaby, they both scored inside 11 minutes, which is the earliest in a Premier League match that two players have scored on their debut. So straight away, two players making an instant impact. Looks like my shout that Tonali is going to be a flop is absolutely ridiculous, and it's been disproven after 1 week of Premier League football. Look, a 3.4 to a 1.9 XG in favour of Newcastle. They really, really dominated the game, dominated the share of the chances. They had 13 shots on target to Aston Villa's 6. Tonali with the most attack and sequence involvements with 7. He really progressed Newcastle up the pitch. They were excellent, absolutely excellent. The goals, Tonali's goal, unbelievable. Isaac's second goal, he reminded me of Henry coming in off the left, holding off two defenders, and then managing to chip Martinez, making him look like a mug. Oh, they're going to be a serious, serious side this season. And then we have Wilson and Barnes coming off the bench and getting goals. Oren, I had them placed at 8th in my Premier League predictions. I really wish I could go and erase that from history now. But look, what was your takeaway on Newcastle in particular in that fixture?
They were phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. They literally picked off. They started up right where they left off last season. And as you say, Harvey Barnes and all coming in is going to be fantastic for them. And the most important thing for me this year is keeping Isaac fit, because they keep him fit all season. There's no reason he can't get 25 to 30 goals in the league. And I'm not. That's not me taking the piss. I genuinely think he has that ability. So yeah, they keep him fit. It's going to be a really good season. But they have got a lot more games this year with Champions League football. This is a team who got to the Carabao Cup final last year as well, so they would be looking to progress from that. They'll be looking to win domestic competitions this year, and they will be ultimately looking to compete in the Champions League as well. So it will be a long and difficult season for Newcastle. However, I expected this game to be a draw. I expected Aston Villa to show a better account of themselves, to be honest, but Newcastle blew them out of the park.
Yeah, I mean, look, the annoying thing for Villa and for a lot of Villa fans I've seen online is that, they lost Buendia early in the week to an ACL injury, and now they've lost Tyrone Mings to an ACL injury. Interesting stat again. And the entire time that Aston Villa have been back up in the Premier League, they have only won one game without Tyrone Mings in the squad, which is actually quite strange. So it just shows you, even when he was like maybe a bit poor last season, they still kind of rely on Mings to be that defensive solidity. I really thought that Douglas Luiz, who was excellent towards the back end of last season, looked a wee bit out of place against Newcastle. Their attacking talent up front didn't really give a good account of themselves, to be honest. Connor, I mean, look, the job that Unai Emery has done at Aston Villa, there's no other word other than fantastic. But, I mean, in terms of a first game of the season, they were very, very naive against Newcastle.
Yeah, that's just the way they play, though. They play very risky football, high up the pitch, high energy. Newcastle just played them off the park, to be honest. I thought first half Villa were okay, but second half they just got ripped apart. There could have been more. As you said, there was like 13 shots on target for Newcastle. For Villa, I think Mings will be a huge loss, as you said. That is a crazy stat, but he is a leader, and Emery after the game was saying how much of a loss he is. I think he's improved. I think towards the end of last season, he was really impressive. Bundia as well, a creative player in the team, is a massive loss. I think they're replacing him now, but with a new signing. But I thought Tonali was unbelievable. I thought he'd done everything defensively, attacking wise. He was involved in 3 goals. He didn't get the assist for the other 2, but he was a huge reason for the goals. I thought Newcastle, I thought Botman was very good, and Gordon was surprisingly good. Barnes off the bench, Wilson off the bench, and as you said, Isaac, I think 25, 30 goals is not out of the realms of possibility, because if he can stay fit, we've seen it last season, I think he scored 10 goals in like 20 games. He can score goals, and he is a threat. He destroyed Konza for the 3rd goal. His pace, power, finishing, everything. So for Newcastle, it is exciting. It'll just be, you know, as the season progresses with the Champions League, with the, you know, the more games that they have, will the squad be able to take it? But if I was a Villa supporter, you know, it's only the first game of the season, so I wouldn't be too worried. But I thought their midfield, as you said, I thought Douglas Luiz, I thought McGinn was poor again. I thought he was poor, and I thought, you know, they brought on Tillmans in the second half. He played okay, but it's only the first game, so I wouldn't read too much into it. But I did predict kind of Villa would not be as good as people make out to be in our predictions, and I'm going to stick with that because I do think they do have some talented players. Like Diaby played well, and they've Watkins, but I think you know, they are a bit overrated. But you know, it's only the first game, so we'll have to just wait and see.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Maybe just because their side's not as settled as the likes of Newcastle, you know, Newcastle's additions really come in to sort of strengthen the depth there, and you know their starting 11 is normally quite settled anyway. So yeah, look, I think Newcastle on course to have what could be a really really good season, and Villa we're just jury's still sort of out on them. We're just going to have to wait and see. Um, but moving it then to last night's
Just
match,
before we do move on, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Just on Tyrone Mings, like, and I know this is probably just a throwaway comment, but I think that actually highlights how poor Gerrard was in the Premier League as a manager. Like, his first plan of action was stripping Tyrone Mings of the captaincy at Aston Villa. So, like, I don't understand that. Like, it was immediately reinstated under Unai Emery. Like, what's your thoughts on that? Like, one game, I didn't know that stat that you said. One game that he wasn't in the squad. That's the only time they've lost. Doesn't see him.
It's honestly, I think it just highlights, you know, maybe the narrative around Mings in the media, and maybe even with us has been wrong at times. You know, maybe we have criticised him unfairly. I mean, Gerrard as a manager, look, do we really, really need to say anything more? I mean, he's now managing in Saudi Arabia. He's a clown. We all know that, you know. So, yeah, screw him.
That is the thing, though. It's like the way Emery talked about him with Mings is just like what a great leader was. I don't even remember when he got stripped. There was ex-players coming out had played with Mings, and they were like, "Why has Gerrard done this? This makes no sense." I think maybe it was just an authority thing. Maybe Gerrard coming in thinking, "I'm just going to take over Villa, get rid of these boys, and I'll bring my own players in," and it just didn't work out.
Yeah, well, good luck to him out in Saudi Arabia.
Won his first game, lad.
Oh, he did, yeah, won his first game. Oh, fucking some manager, lad. Some manager.
Bring him back, get him into Villa.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's a real team you need to watch this season. It's the Armagh City under-13 Eagles that are managed by myself and Owen.
Yes,
and that's
sir.
a real team to watch.
Yes. We don't sign no Jordan Henderson for 45 million quid.
Not a chance, lad. He wouldn't even get into our starting 11. Not a chance. Well, look, moving it on to the game on Monday. We're recording this on Tuesday, so we would have just watched Manchester United and Wolves there last night. United managing to get the 1-0 win over Wolves, but really, I mean, United were the inferior team on the night, to be honest. Matthias Cunha travelling 195.5 metres alone with progressive carries. That's the most carries in the Premier League for the last 15 years, which is crazy. If he could add finishing to that, you'd be looking at a serious player. Wolves, 23 shots. It's the second most by an away side in the Premier League since 03-04. It was Chelsea that did that, which is surprising because that was under Mourinho. But yeah, look, boys, honestly, I'm really, really disappointed with how United started the season. Look, by all means, it's always great to get 3 points in the bag. And really, there are games this season that you're going to have to grind through to get 3 points. But Jesus, I didn't think we would need to do it on the first game of the season against a side who, realistically, everybody had down to be relegated this year.
Yeah. We were shite. There's no two ways about it. United just a really poor performance from start to finish. The only there was 3 players that I think could hold a good account of themselves. Onana being one of them. I know he near decapitated Kolasinac at the end, but he was unreal. Like the entire game, he was so composed. He did come for everything. You know, he was as far as Premier League debuts go for a goalkeeper, he did everything right. I thought Mason Mount held a good account of himself as well. I thought his pressing stats were very, very good. He went for every ball. We've seen him in our own box defensively and in the attacking box. So I was impressed with Mason Mount, but Aaron Wan-Bissaka was far and away the best player on the pitch. both defensively and attacking wise, he was phenomenal. And I think he's really, really improved, because this was a player that was dead and gone under Eric Ten Hag as little as last January. So he should hold his head high. Look, it's there's positives to take for Wolves. There is positives to take. However, Wolves' problem has never been that they haven't played good football. They have always, since they came back to the Premier League, they've had players with technical ability that have the ability to do what they did to Manchester United last night, which was overrun the midfield and dribble through the midfield, which you don't see a lot in the Premier League anymore. Um, and every single one of their players, once they've seen that them first two dribbles, I think, from Marius Cunha, Marius Nunes, Lamina, Jai Gomez, all three of them were like, this is a good way to get at United here. Big pitch, Old Trafford, there was always going to be space. So, yes, they used the space well, but it's just the same old story. They can't finish. They can't finish, and they don't have that clinical goal scorer to do it. Yes, Marius Cunha played brilliant last night, and he ran the ball fucking like twice the amount of Usain Bolt, but he can't finish. Do you know what I mean? He's never been a prolific goal scorer at any club he's been at. I think the most he scored is like 12 goals in a league season. So unless they sign a striker or they get Kalasic hitting well, I still think. I know it's only one game in, but my early prediction was Wolves to get relegated, and I'm sticking with that, to be honest.
Yeah, look, the lack of a goal scorer definitely does hurt them. There's no point in saying that. I mean, look, Wolves did have a 2.23 xG last night. United only had a 1.48. Definitely Wolves had the better share of the chances, but I think that stat highlights just how well Onana played last night. Really, really good debut. I completely agree, Oren. I think he's just a breath of fresh air. You have a goalkeeper that comes for crosses. You have a goalkeeper that's not afraid to throw himself about out there. And ultimately, the one thing he does give you is calmness on the ball, and that's not something we've seen from De Gea last year. And I really liked his pass selection last night. That's the positive I'm really taking from the game. Wan-Bissaka, agreed. Really, really good performance. Good to see him get an assist. I think that'll do his confidence the world of good. And I think he is United's obvious first choice at right back. I think he has to be. We were saying, me and Connor there last week, I was saying to Connor that, I'm not fussed on Dallo, tell you the truth, lads. I don't like him. I don't think he's that good, tell you the truth. And I really wish that, if there was a wee bit more money in the kitty, that we could have went and looked at another fullback this summer, because I just don't really think Dallo's good enough. Interestingly, you had Neto and Pedro Neto and Anthony were the most involved players in attacking sequences. They both had 8. I actually thought Anthony was really good last night. I thought he was United's best attacking outlet up front, because Rashford was non-existent. Garnacho was poor. Thought Sancho did all right when he come on, showed sparks of something at least. Connor, look, I know, as we've said so many times on this podcast, it's the first game. You can't read too much into it. But, in terms of a first showing, that's not what the Old Trafford faithful want to see this season from Manchester United.
No, it was disappointing, to be honest. Wolves, as Gary O'Neill said after the game, just dictated midfield 4-on-3 every time. A lot of poor performances. I thought Mount, it's only his debut, but they played him a bit further up the pitch. Didn't really work. Bruno was a bit disappointing. Casemiro, not his best game for United, but as you boys were saying, Wan-Bissaka, and I thought Shaw played well as well, the goalkeeper. As you said, it's a breath of fresh air. Very calm on the ball. Anytime De Gea got the ball last year, you were a bit nervous. With him. With Onana, you feel confident. But attacking wise, as I said, in the prediction last week again, I said where United will struggle is getting goals. They didn't create enough. Like Rashford, I know didn't have his best game, but he wasn't given many opportunities. I thought Anthony was good. I was really impressed by Wolves, and I said I tipped him to go down, but I thought Lamina was very good. I thought Nunez was very good. Gomez, Cunha, of course, if he could finish. But as Owen was saying, their goals are their problem. I've seen they only scored 31 goals last season. They play good football, but they just can't score. But I don't want to go back on the relegation thing, but looking at that Wolves performance, they performed like that. And we've seen Gary O'Neill at Bournemouth, how impressive he was. They're not going to get relegated because they do have some really good players. And even at the back, I thought Kilman is very good, and I thought Dawson, really good defenders. Semedo played really well, and the left back for them, Nori, was really, really good. Really a constant threat down that side. So for United, first game, last season we lost our first 2 games and we still got third, so I wouldn't be too worried. But definitely improvements to be made, and we play Tottenham next week, who I thought actually were decent at the weekend. If we play like that against Tottenham, we'll get beat easily, I think. And the incident at the end, I don't know if you're going to or not next, but definite penalty. Unbelievable
Yeah.
how that wasn't given as penalty. As a United fan, if I was a Wolves fan, I'd be raging because Onana, who did play brilliantly, just cleans the striker out. So lucky, we'll take the 3 points. It's a better start than last season, but a lot of improvements to be made.
Well, yeah, I was going to come to it actually, Connor. So you're saying definite penalty. I'm saying definite penalty as well. I think, as a United fan today, I'm sitting here very, very lucky that we've come away with 3 points, because really and truly, that's a stonewall of penalty, as you're going to see. I mean, Owen, you said it as well, the decapitation, it wasn't a good moment from Onana, to be honest, and United really, really got away with one. And to be honest, I think the fact that VAR didn't overturn it, and it's a clear and obvious error. It should have been given as a penalty, and I think it really, United did get away with one there. What about yourself, Owen?
Look, I do think it was a penalty. I'm not going to say it wasn't, because to me it was a penalty. But all I've seen on Twitter from like actual ex-goalkeepers was that as a goalkeeper you have to have eyes for the ball the entire time. And looking back on replays and stuff, Kalajic doesn't play the ball. He just stands there. And Onana is looking at the ball the entire time. He's never going for the man. I'm not saying it's not a foul, because I do think it's a foul. I think it's a penalty. But Kalajic doesn't play the ball. It's like he's just standing there. Do you know? Like, I don't know. If it was given, I wouldn't have complained. But it hasn't been given, and I'm fucking buzzing.
Well, look, I'm sure that's not the only dodgy decision that we're going to have to analyse this season, boys. We normally have a few of them to do every week.
It's about time one goes our way.
Yes, agreed, lad. Agreed. That's the first thing I said to Connor before we started recording. I think we were due a wee bit of luck, tell you the truth. So, yeah. Look, well, moving it on, lads, to who will ultimately be Man City's biggest challengers this year, Arsenal. They were at home to Forest, managed to get the 2-1 win with an absolutely incredible finish from Bukayo Saka, just picking up from where he left off last season. Undoubtedly in the top 3 or 4 wingers in world football, just has it all. Can score, can play the ball, dribble, pace, you name it, he has it. I want to key in though on Declan Rice's debut though, lads. 92% pass accuracy, hit the post, really, really looked good in that sort of Granit Xhaka role from last season. And, I think we've seen elements to his game, his dribbling ability we haven't really seen before, but it really came to the fore against Forest. Of course, then Odegaard picking up exactly where he left off last season, 10 attacking sequence involvements. It looks to be a really dynamic midfielder for Arsenal. Partey almost playing as like a de facto centre-back. It was a really strange setup, but refreshing to see. Oren, did you think Arsenal were good value for the win, or, was it hurry at a couple of moments for them?
It was hurry at a couple of moments. I think Nottingham Forest gave a good account of themselves as well. I thought Lenga for the goal was absolutely fantastic, to be fair to him. I thought his run was brilliant. But in terms of Arsenal, I know, what the fuck, Jalanga, like, of all players. But yeah, in terms of Arsenal, when you have Granit Xhaka there, Arteta has molded that role for a Granit Xhaka type player, and whenever you have a Granit Xhaka type player in times about 10, you get Declan Rice. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've always admired Declan Rice's footballing ability, especially ever since I seen him live, and I just thought, oh my god, you're incredible. Don't think anybody's worth 100 million, but if Moises Caicedo's worth 115 million, Declan Rice is worth 100 million or 90 million, whatever it was they paid for him. And I think price tags don't mean as much if it means they're going to improve the team, which is what I said about Maguire a few years ago too. Obviously, it hasn't worked out, but for the first 2 seasons with Maguire, not that 80 million was a good price, but he improved our defence, and Declan Rice improves Arsenal's midfield. gives them that dynamic. He's still young, he's still fresh, he can run up and down the field, he can do the defensive hard yards, but also provide attacking depth. As you said, Bukayo Saka, just inevitable. That's a speciality, cutting in and whipping it into the far corner. Odegaard, brilliant. I do think Arsenal, the next few weeks could be a bit hairy for Arsenal, just after losing Yuri and Timber, who early reports are saying he could be out until 2024 with an ACL injury. Who, he gave a good account of himself in left back, and he that cover he was really providing, especially pre-season. He came in, he's played centre back, he's played right back, and then he started his first Premier League game in left back. So I think they need to sign somebody else to provide that bit of cover, because I know they had Gabriel on the bench, but I don't know. I think that the whole dynamic was, in terms of the defensive dynamic, was structured around Jerry and Timber's arrival, and that's going to be halted now for a few months.
Yeah, definitely, Owen. I completely agree with you. Timber, it's a big miss, especially for that cover that they needed and that versatility around defence. They've lost that now because he's out injured, so it's going to be tough for them. Another interesting stuff from the game, lads, is Arsenal had 15 shots on target, but only registered a 0.8 XG, so they actually overperformed their XG quite substantially. Forest, they had a 1.1 XG with only 2 shots on target. Just that shows you that even if you're creating the chances, and even if you are dominant in the game, the chances you're creating aren't necessarily going to be chances that lead to goals. And I think Arsenal did kind of find that out the hard way the other day. But look, I mean, another winger of Arsenal's I want to highlight, Gabriel Martinelli. I mean, when you have a player that can produce a piece of skill like that, to flip the ball into Nketiah off the roulette, and Nketiah then does what he does best and put the ball in the back of the net. It's his 14th goal at the Emirates from he broke into Arsenal's first team. Shows you just how clinical he is as well. So, Connor, I mean, look, even though they've just lost Timber, which lessens that defensive depth, I mean, up top, they still have quality forwards that are going to punish teams this season.
Definitely. They're just a really exciting team. Martinelli was brilliant last year. Saka is an unbelievable player, to be honest. Just jealous that Arsenal have such a talented player. His goal was unbelievable. He's been doing that for the last few years. I thought Nketiah was really, really good. I seen, Arteta was coming out singing his praises, kind of saying he's like a role model because he's worked so hard. And I seen he even came up to Arteta during the training session and said, you must be blind if you don't play me. That's how well he's playing in training. That's how well Nketiah is playing. And I think last year he done well. He came in, and then when Jesus came back, he kind of got dropped again. And when he came on, he wasn't as good as what he was at the start of the year. But Arsenal are a really, really exciting team, as you said, with that midfield: Rice, Odegaard, Havertz. Maybe not the best debut, but they're a really, really exciting team. And even Saliba at the back. Timber's a huge loss because he is versatile, as you said, as we spoke about last week. He can play multiple positions. He's a really talented player, good cover. For Arsenal, it'll just be about being more clinical, as you said. Need to be more ruthless. I think Arteta said that after the game. They had like 86% possession in the first half, and in second half, they had 80% possession the whole game. So they dictated the game, but just couldn't finish. And then even like your boy Johnson missed a good chance for Forest. But like Forest, I actually was impressed by Forest in the second half that they kept in the game. They got their goal and they made it a bit nervy at the end. Alanga's run was really good. Serious pace. I know he's going up against Partey, who isn't the quickest. And I don't really understand him playing right back, to be honest. But for Arsenal, it just will be more clinical because they could rue, they could rue if they make a mistake at any point in the match and they're only 1-0 up, say, in that position, and they end up with a draw. It cost them last year, as we've seen, that too many draws. They went 2-0 up on various occasions, West Ham, Liverpool, just to name a few, and it cost them the title in the end. So they need to learn from that. But again, Arsenal, I think, will be title contenders.
Yeah, no, agreed, Connor. Agreed. I completely agree. If they're in a situation where they are only 1-0 up, the ball needs to go in the back of the net, and they maybe didn't look as attackingly comfortable as maybe what the result would suggest. But moving on then to the last 5 games, lads. So the way we're going to work it this season is I'm just going to go game by game. So Oren, you take a game, I take a game, Connor, you take a game, and that's just how we'll run through the last 5 games. So going to start with Brighton and Luton. Oren, going to come to you first. We had Estupinian, Matoma, Gross, the highest in terms of attacking sequences with 13, 12 and 11 respectively. I mean, really, look, yeah, they've lost in midfield, but I mean, the system that De Zerbi set up is elite, and they're still going to be a problem this season.
Yeah, 100%, and they're going to compete in Europe as well. I fully expect Brighton to finish in a similar position this year as they did last year, and I fully expect there to be multiple results going Luton's way in terms of 4-1 and high scoring score lines against them, unless they reinforce. And it's as simple as that. I seen that their social media put up a highlight reel of their right back that they got on loan from Man City. And how the fuck can you put up a compilation of a defender who shipped 4 goals on your debut? What the hell? Mate, he balled out, yeah. One of the things he like kicked the ball out for a throw in, and the fucking fans went mad, and all the comments underneath it, oh, I love this fella already. What?
They can't believe
That's
it.
what a right back has to do.
I can't believe it.
I don't know. Luton's going to struggle. We said it beforehand. And to be 100% honest, Brighton didn't even play that well. They didn't even play that well until the last like half an hour. But they have got talent, Brighton. They've got talent. That Jay Pedro's a good player. He's a good player. And then even Evan Ferguson coming off the bench. Yeah. Brighton's going to be fine. Luton, don't know.
Yeah, definitely. I think Luton, you know, you don't like to say, oh, they're definitely going to go down. You don't want to be one of those kind of characters, but I mean, it doesn't look good, to be honest. Connor, coming to you with Brentford and Spurs, finished 2 each. You know, it finished 1 each last season, but I mean, this time around, what you'll say is Spurs did look a lot better. You know, they controlled the ball, 69% possession. Madison, Kulusevski, most involved in the game, 7 attacking sequences. I mean, Madison really fits into that Spurs side like a hand in a glove, doesn't he?
Definitely. 2 assists, really creative. Actually, think I know it's going to be harsh on Spurs fans, but I think they missed Kane, because that connection between Kane and Madison could have been something really special. Thought Son and Richarlison maybe weren't at their best, but like, you know, Ange's effect, you can see it's coming into play. Played really good football, dictated the game. I thought Basuma was exceptional, a player that I didn't really think had that in his locker, his passing ability, and willing to go forward now. You can see he's a confident player again. With Brentford, obviously the Mbeumo, the penalty, which was probably on the soft side, I thought, for Brentford, and then the Tottenham were a wee bit unlucky with the second goal. In the first half, you just thought, like, how can Tottenham keep playing this way? Because Brentford were killing them on the counter, especially Henry down that side of Royals. But in the second half, I thought they improved a lot. Defensively looked a bit more sound. For Tottenham, actually, I think there's a lot of positives to take from it. I think, you know, if Son can improve or Charleston can improve, they could really, you know, I said they'd come about 9th or 10th. They could threaten top 8. But it's a draw was a fair result. That's all you can really say. I thought first half was really good. I thought second half the intensity dropped again. That's what you're going to get first game of the season, you know, first game back. But all in all, draw is probably fair. And Mbeumo did miss one of the sitters of the weekend to make it 3-2 just before halftime. But again, positives for both sides. I thought Brentford looked good. Spurs looked good. I think Brentford looked like they maybe were missing Tony, and Spurs looked like they were missing Kane. But it is going to take time for these these teams to, you know, get used to life without them. So if I was a Spurs fan, I actually would feel pretty confident after that.
Yeah, I mean, look, they finished 8th last season with Kane. If they could finish in and around 8th again this season without him, I think that would probably be a successful first season for Postecoglou. I mean, you take a 30-goal-a-season striker out of any side, they're going to struggle. So, I'll do Everton and Fulham, lads. Goodison Park finished 1-0 to Fulham. Bobby Cordova, Bobby Reed, or whatever you want to call him, coming on and scoring a goal with Fulham's first shot on target of the game. I mean, look, Fulham are kind of marred in controversy at the minute. You know, they re-signed Willian, 10 days later, he's looking to go to Saudi. Mitrovic starts on the bench. He's looking to go to Saudi. It's going to be difficult for Fulham this season, I think. And I really think that Everton gave a great account of themselves. 2.9 XG. They looked strong creatively. Again, they just need a striker. They need somebody who's going to stand up there and score goals, which they don't currently have. 9 shots on target for Everton to Fulham's 2, and it will be with 8 attacking sequence involvements. He was excellent within the game. Onana was excellent in the game. Doucouré passed up one of the biggest chances I seen over the weekend. All he had to do was square it to his right hand side or try and lob it over Leno. But I mean, just on Leno, what a performance from the goalkeeper. I had him in my fantasy team. He scored me 12 points this week, so thank you, Bernd Leno, for those incredible saves. Actually do want to get your opinion on something quickly though, lads, just before we do move on. Obviously, Everton did have a goal from Michael Keane that was ruled out. And again, similar thing to the Onana, it was like an impediment on the goalkeeper. But when you watch it back, there's no impediment on the goalkeeper. So just quickly, Oren, did you think the goal should have stood?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I actually thought Everton played really well in the game. And yeah, much like Wolves, I feel like Everton were a bit robbed.
Yeah. Connor, and again, same to you. Did you think it should have stood?
Yeah, definitely should have stood. He's just standing there. The goalkeeper basically fell on top of him with the ball. I thought again that people maybe say Wolves got robbed. I think Everton got even more robbed because, as you said, they played really well. They just don't have a striker. Mopé just missing chances again. But yeah, definitely a penalty, or definitely should have been a goal. Sorry.
Yeah, no, agreed. And moving it then to Bournemouth and West Ham, finished 1 each. A 1.2 to a 1.3 XG, and just slightly in favour of West Ham. Bournemouth, though, under Areola, what a transformation. 63% of the ball they managed to keep. That is not like them. But Jared Bowen's on fire. He's shagging Danny Dyer, pulls one out of the bag to win the game for West Ham. Oren, what's your takeaway from Bournemouth and West Ham?
Yeah, good game. It was a good game of football for the neutral, even though it was only 1-1. And as you say, he's pulled 2 worldies there, Jared Bowen, to be 100% honest, a worldly goal and a worldly woman. And look, Bournemouth were really, really good this weekend. I'm really impressed with Dominic Solanke and how much he stepped up in the last 2 years, and he scored a really good goal. So yeah, I think, look, I know it's early days and everything, but I didn't have them to go down anyway. But I think Bournemouth could really, really show a good account of themselves this season and make their way up the table this year.
Agreed. And Connor, final game of the weekend that we're covering, Sheffield United, Crystal Palace. Palace managing to get the 1-0 win. Roy Hodgson looks like he's bringing the boxing gloves back out and he's ready to fight anybody on the touchline this season. But, I mean, look, the player I want to talk about the most, Eberechi Eze, 11 attacking sequence involvements. What a performance. What a player.
Yeah, brilliant performance. Stood up without Saha. You know, he's gone now and Elise wasn't playing. I've seen Elise. Apparently he's going to go to Chelsea. But yeah, I thought Doucouré and Lerma in midfield were exceptional. Sheffield United again, another one where they created very little. Not the greatest game. You know, Palace, like you're looking, stats are 24 shots, 8 on target. Sheffield United, 8 shots, 1 on target. Sheffield United are going to struggle in the Premier League. They're a bit like Luton. I don't know how they're going to stay up. I don't really have enough attacking threat. Not the most exciting game. As you said, the most exciting thing that happened was Roy Hodgson scoring up on a lad who's 50 years younger than him. But fair play to Roy, and that's why he's still a manager in the Premier League at 76.
Exactly, lad. Hopefully we get a few feisty encounters on the touchline this season. Well, that's going to wrap it up for the Premier League coverage, folks. So now, thankfully, we can move back to my favourite segment. I think all of our favourite segments here on the podcast are picks of the week. So, Connor, coming to you first then. Who is Game Week 1's player of the week?
Yeah, difficult one because obviously, as you said, Leno, 9 saves, brilliant. Pedro was really good in his debut. Nana, Kedia, Holland gets 2 goals, but it's definitely going to come in the game between Newcastle and Aston Villa, and it's between Tonali and Isak, and I'm going to go Isak because he was just unbelievable. 2 goals. Tonali's actually very unlucky not to get it because he was brilliant, but I think 2 goals, you know, he's just a constant threat. Could have even had a hat trick. And as we had said before, I think if he stays fit, he will get 25 to 30 goals in the Premier League this season. Really exciting player. Like if you're keeping Callum Wilson out of the team, you're a top striker. So I'm going with Isak this week.
Yeah, I mean, Isak has always been a striker that we have admired on the podcast. And I mean, in terms of those like European, like wonder kid strikers, like he was always one of those very highly touted players. And look, boys, I agree with you. I don't think a season of 25 goals from Isak or 30 goals from Isak is completely out of the realms of possibility. This is a striker that has a lot of good attributes: tall, strong, fast, good with the ball at his feet, deceptively good with the ball at his feet for such a big lad. And of course, has that immaculate finishing ability. I mean, keep him fit. Newcastle looking strong this season. Oren, what about Isak for yourself?
Yeah, I think Isak is all the. If there wasn't a Haaland in the Premier League, Isak's a potential Golden Boot winner. You know, I already what I said about him earlier in the podcast is 25 to 30 goals. I think he has that ability.
Yeah, serious player. Serious player. Going to move on then to my fantasy pick of the week, lads. Connor, you had a very, very decent first week in fantasy. I'm doing all right, but the fantasy king will regain his crown come the end of the season. Don't you worry. Oren, you had a nightmare start, sir.
How many points did he get?
Suck my ass, lad.
How many points did he get?
54, lad. Fuck that.
Didn't Captain Haaland? What a
Fuck
silly
that.
boy.
And mate, I thought fucking United were going to win like 4-0, and I thought Bruno was going to get at least 2 assists. It wasn't my fault to play it ass, but yeah, no, it was stupid.
I made that mistake last year. You captain Haaland every week. You just do it. I've made it
I
last year.
know.
He scored like
Well, I
100.
captained him every week last year, but again, I thought, like I said earlier, I thought Burnley were actually going to show something. I didn't think it would be as easy for City as it was, and that was my thinking behind it. But yeah, fantasy's probably easier when you don't think about it as much.
It really is. It really is, lad. Like we have shout out to Kieran. Kieran is in our fantasy league now this year, and Kieran is not really an avid watcher of football. So as he said, he expects not to finish last in the league because he doesn't really watch football, and he can just sort of judge off everybody else's team. Oh, this guy's doing all right. This guy's doing all right. So it's definitely an interesting social experiment to see how it goes. Yeah. But as for my pick of the week, lads, I've found it very, very tough because, you know, the fixtures next week are quite tough for teams as well. So I'm not going like United and Spurs because I think that's a game that I don't want to touch at all. But the player that I am going to go for next week and that I think is going to have a big impact is Pervis Estupiñán. I think Estupiñán is a defender that everybody needs to have on their team. I think he's 5.5 million or 5 million. I think he's the obvious choice in there at the minute. He got 9 points this week, 7 or 9 points, I can't remember, but really, really impressed, was involved in an assist. And I mean, this is a guy last season that we had so much credit for, and that, you know, Oren, I distinctly remember when we did our mid-season team of the seasons, you got so much flack for having Estupiñán in there, and it was so stupid and unwarranted because he was absolutely unreal last season.
Yeah, didn't make sense at all. Did not make sense at all. But fuck the TikTok warriors, they know better than me. And it's not like most people had him as their left back of choice for the team this season last year. So, as you said, very very a few weeks after that, to quote Connor Richards, suck a fat one.
Exactly, lad. Exactly. Well, Oren, coming on to your opinion, the first opinion of this season, and I'm very excited that we might have something to debate.
Yeah, first opinion this season is it could be a controversial one. So obviously with all the money that Chelsea are spending, as Connor said, they've just activated the release clause for Mikel Elise as well. I still think Tottenham Hotspur finish above Chelsea this season.
Oh, that's a hot take. That is a hot take. I think Spurs really showed a good account of themselves this weekend. They were really, really good. You can see Postecoglou already sort of stamping that style of play down on Spurs. But again, I think you could say the exact same thing for Chelsea. I think Poch is making Chelsea an exciting young team for those Chelsea supporters to get behind. I think in my preseason predictions, I had Chelsea at 5th and I had Spurs at 6th. So I'm going to stick with that. I still think Chelsea have a little bit more than Spurs at the minute to carry them sort of through the season. I think Spurs made some good additions, you know, the likes of Madison, Vicario, Udogie even. Thought he was excellent at the weekend too. But I like this system. I like the system that Chelsea's playing. I think Colwell's going to be an important player this season. You add Caicedo into that midfield. There you go. You're secure in the middle. I like the signing of Nicholas Jackson. I thought Mudryk, when he came off the bench at the weekend, was very promising. And if they can keep Reece James and Chilwell fit in this new system, I think Chelsea could be on to a winner. And obviously, with the top 5 now getting Champions League in the Premier League, I really think Chelsea could creep into that Champions League conversation. For the minute, I'm going to stick with what I said. I think Spurs should be floating somewhere in around the sort of 6th to 8th to 9th bracket, somewhere in around that region. But I'm going to say Chelsea finish above them.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Spurs did show promise, but there's such a standard difference in the squads. Bringing Caicedo in, bringing Lavi in, Elise, that guy Jackson looked very good in the first game. I think Chelsea are just going to get better as the season goes on. Even Colwell looked really good. I think as the season goes on, they could really improve. And I think, as Connor said there, I think top 5, if it gets Champions League, they could easily get 5th. It's very competitive this year. But with Poch as manager, I was kind of talking him up last week. He's just a really top manager, and he's kind of brought the positivity back to Chelsea. He could kind of do like an Arteta done at Arsenal in his first season. Or second season, he brought the positivity back, and I think they finished 5th that season. So I just think I think Tottenham would need to bring in more players. Like losing Kane, a 30-goal a season striker, is huge, and I think Spurs would be actually lucky to finish in the top 8.
It's definitely going to be interesting this season, really. And they are 2 clubs that realistically should be battling it out against one another and viewing each other. I completely agree with you, and I do think they should view each other as, oh, well, we can leapfrog these guys or we can leapfrog these guys. I do completely agree, but just for the minute, I think I'm going to stick with Chelsea just slightly above them in terms of that sort of
I don't think
progression.
Chelsea will have as good a season as people think. I think they've spent too much money on. They're signing quality players, but you can only play 11 players. Do you know what I mean? And they're signing multiple players for one position. Why? It doesn't make sense. And personally, I've never really rated Mauricio Pochettino as a top manager. I know he's done bits for Southampton and he won the league in Paris. Good job. Fuck me. But personally, I just think they're spending too much money, and I think they made that. We've seen that problem last year. If you look at Chelsea's squad on paper, in terms of players last year, and now there isn't a whole pile of difference in the squads. And sure, they genuinely finished 10 points off relegation zones. I don't know. I think yes, it's all well and good spending all this money. However, team bonding and gelling to find your final 11 is such a difficult thing to do. And Chelsea are signing all these players now after pre-season, integrating them into the starting 11 in the middle of the league season, the middle of the league campaign, where a lot of them, in terms of Lavia and even Moises Caicedo, who they've both signed, haven't played pre-season games because they've both been actively looking out of their clubs. And yes, they're fantastic players, and it probably won't take them all too long to integrate into the team, but it will take them a bit of time. And I don't think a lot of people are taking that into consideration either.
Well, they definitely could have got their business done earlier. I mean, that's something that United have been fucking brutal at for years. Thankfully, we seem to have got our shit together now. But I do agree. I think those signings definitely could have got in earlier. And I think even if they had got them in earlier, the price tag wouldn't have been as hefty either. Even the likes of Caicedo, yes, you probably still will have had to pay about 90 million for him. But I mean, 90 million is a whole lot less than 115 million. So, look, I do agree with you in that sentiment. But I just think over the course of the season, I think Pochettino is a better manager than Postecoglou. I think Chelsea have the better players than Spurs. And ultimately, I do back Pochettino to get it right at Chelsea. And look, it's going to be one of those ones where, it's one of those ones where it is too early in the season, I think, to really have a definitive opinion on it. So I think that's one that we are just going to have to see play out over the course of the season. Well, that's going to do it for this episode, folks. Thank you very much for tuning in. I can tell you from all of us, it is heartfelt gratitude and massive thanks for all the listens that we're receiving and all the views across all of our social platforms. This is us back into full bottom bins mode now, so the content will be coming thick and fast. We're going to have podcast a week for you covering the Premier League. Going to have plenty of content up on the TikToks. We're debating a few new video ideas and stuff as well. So going to be plenty coming your guys as well. So just keep watching, keep giving us support. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe, smash the like button. If you're watching on Spotify, why not give us a follow? It's free. It's free. Across our socials, we're at bottombinspod, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. And as always, keep it bottom bins.
Keep it bottom bins.
Ottomans.